This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. You are listening to it. We are back again. I am back home in the studio right now, catching up on work. It feels good to just be home, to have a little time, for life stuff, but for music stuff too. Like the last couple days, I've just been working on sound design, which is not something I get a ton of time to do. I'm usually focusing on trying to finish one song or a mix or an edit. So it's been great. I've been feeling good. I hope you're feeling good too. I've got a really fun episode today. I've got Blondish on the show, the amazing house music producer, DJ, all around badass. It was great to have her on the show. This one was just a little different from a lot of conversations I have. And Blondish, one of her big priorities right now is this organization she started called Bye Bye Plastic. It's an organization that's bringing plastic-free solutions to the music industry. It's been on BBC News, getting a ton of support around the world. A lot of your favorite artists are probably already participating. And you're going to hear us talk all about it in the conversation. It's just an awesome project. Blondish also just put out her collaboration with Diplo that's called Give Dem. Earlier this year, she was at Coachella. She tours around the world. She's got her own series of parties called Abracadabra, which is also a record label. Basically, she's doing it all. I'm going to put a link in the description of this episode where you can go check her out, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our conversation in just a second. Back to Back is brought to you today by my friends over at Serato. And Serato just released their brand new beat-making software production suite called Serato Studio. You've heard me talk about this before. For all my producers out there, listen up. This is such a great piece of software. Their idea was that they wanted to simplify the path to music production. They wanted to make it so you can basically take the ideas you have in your head, get them down on the page, so to speak, as quickly as possible, keep the creativity flowing so you can just spend more time making music and less time worrying about all the little technical tweaks. And you can use it kind of as a complement to whatever software you're already using. Sometimes I'll use it kind of just as like a sketch pad to get an idea down really fast. Then I can take it into my main DAW, mess around with it more, get it sounding crispy. And Serato Studio comes built in with tons of free samples, instruments, loops, drums, effects. You can get a free 14-day trial of the software right now. You don't have to do anything. It's just there waiting for you. And it's all available at serato.com/studio. That's serato.com/studio. Man, it's been a whirlwind lately. I don't know what it is. I've just felt super busy. I felt like I've had less time to sort of look back and reflect on what I've been up to. If I look back at the run of the show, the recent episodes we've had, man, there's been some really good ones. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, or if this is one of your first times checking out the show, I want to make sure I remind everybody, look back in the archives of some of the episodes I've done, because there have been so many good ones, and it's been a while since I talked to some of these people. Recently, I was thinking about episode 71. That's the one I did with Muramasa that we recorded on his tour bus kind of while he was on the go, and it was such a good conversation. It was one of those where at the end of it, I think both of us just felt better than when we started. You can really hear us having fun, and he's such an incredible producer. So many gems. Go check that out. Episode 71 with Muramasa. And another one I was just thinking about was episode 53 with Lane 8. I met up with him right around my birthday, actually, last year at an Airbnb that he was renting with his family. They had me over. It was such a nice day. And I've always found him such an inspirational guy. I mean, he's very smart, but just the way he moves with his project, the way he tours, the music he puts out, he's doing it differently from kind of anybody else. I thought that one was really fun and inspirational. So go check that out too. That's episode 53 with Lane 8. And don't forget, when you're listening to these, even when you're listening to the one today, if this brings up any comments, any questions, any concerns, or if you just want to talk about something that's going on in your own life, you can always reach out to me. My email is backtobackpod@gmail.com, or you can hit me up at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. If you want to help spread the word, if you want to help support the show, you can always tag me in your stories, put up a tweet, let people know you're listening. All of that is the best way to help us grow. And there's the added bonus that I love interacting with everybody out there who's tuning in. I'm always going to be replying, reposting, just generally chatting you up if you're hitting me up. So let's chat, let's connect, and let's check out today's episode with Blondish. So I met up with her about a month ago in New York City. She was there just for a couple days. I was super stoked to talk to her. Love the music, love the project, and she's just an intriguing figure to me. I met up with her at her friend's apartment, this gorgeous apartment, maybe one of the nicest places I've been to in New York City, in Manhattan. I was kind of blown away. And because her time was limited, we just got into it. This episode's a little shorter than usual just because she had to run off to a meeting. She's working on this Bye Bye Plastics initiative right now, doing a lot for that. And what I like about the tone of this conversation is it kind of captures that chaotic vibe of the day. We knew this was the only time we were going to get. We knew there was a lot to talk about. So we're jumping around. We're running and gunning. I had a blast. I just got into it. I think she did too. You'll hear me jumping around a lot. You know, it's that fun, quick, nervous energy. And like I said, don't forget to check out the link in the description of this episode. You're going to hear more about the Bye Bye Plastic initiative in just a minute. She also does these awesome beach cleanups with her fans. And besides any of that, she's just putting out great music. She's always on tour, so catch her if she's in your city. And right now, let's get into it. This is me and Blondish back to back. Let's go. I mean, New York is always a whirlwind. How often do you come here at this point? Because it seems like you're just packing everything in.
I pretty much pack all the time. I think I come 4 or 5 times a year. There's, when you come to New York, I love it because it's like 15-minute meetings and things happen right away. So you can pack everything quite condensedly, where in Europe, it's more about having dinners to come to a decision,
right.
And it's like, I can't be bothered with the long-winded. I love to do it in a social setting, but when it has to do with more business stuff, I'd rather just like wham bam, because
get it done.
Yeah, I have a huge thing with time. It's a constant kind of, but not battle, I guess. But time is an illusion, but I haven't really figured out that part yet.
Right.
So
the logical part of your brain knows it's an illusion, right?
Yeah. So it's always about who do I give my time to? Who do I give my energy to? And I really notice, as things are moving on, I just have less and less of that. And I always need to find ways to recharge also the energy part.
Well, sure. I mean, that's the other part of it, right? Is that as you move forward in a career, gain success, whatever you want to call it, more interest, more eyes on you, there's less time for yourself, right?
For sure.
As artists, I think, of course, you have to take that time. You have to carve it out for yourself.
You have to, or and that's why kind of mental health is a big topic in the DJ world right now, because we have forgotten about ourselves. Luckily, I've figured out a way to stay balanced up until now, in between all the flights, when the flight is going up and down, I have different rituals that I do in the mornings. I really work on my like connective tissue.
What does that mean? Connective tissue.
What does it mean?
Well,
it's an important thing.
Like, I know what connective tissue is, but when you say you work on it, what do you mean?
So I don't necessarily go to the gym and work on my physical big muscles. I really take the time to connect to my subtle body, which is more energetic, slow moving, like Tai Chi, Qigong, breathing, connecting with your breath into the movements and breathing into different parts of your body to have that connection. And that's kind of where I find my grounding and foundation.
It almost sounds like meditation.
Of course, it is. There's infinite ways to meditate. And when you're using your breath to work on yourself, that's another form.
Is that something you've always been interested in, or sort of how did you come to that kind of practice?
Well, it was an amazing journey, and it still is. No, I'm a little middle class girl from Stony Creek, Ontario, Canada. Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows where that is, but
I actually don't.
It's near Toronto.
Oh, okay.
It's a suburb.
Okay, got it.
So there, there was no such thing even as sushi, So I even had TV dinners when I was growing up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It was the 80s, early 90s. So for me, of course, the journey has been, the path has been quite long. I discovered meditation in 2012.
Okay.
It kind of happened around the same time I started going to Burning Man. When
that makes sense.
Kind of these topics come up, and also being in Tulum, where Tulum was kind of the anti-Playa del Carmen for the festivals and stuff. When we wanted to escape, we had no shoes there, no security, everything was free. I felt free there, and this is where you kind of connect to nature and you start searching.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you mentioned nature because to me, a large part of why I wanted to talk to you is, well, first of all, I just am a fan of your music, but there's a lot of these nature themes that I see in your work, and that's something I'm a big fan of and something that's sort of a passion for me too. So I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to nature. But before that, you mentioned growing up in kind of like middle-class Canadian suburb. And at some point you got to Montreal. Is that right?
Yeah.
What age was that?
I was 17. I used to go out a lot. Like I was a raver in Ontario. There was a lot of raves and breaks was big back then.
Yeah.
Big, huge raves. And I was into that scene. And but there was something missing for me from the scene there. I felt that I didn't fit in somehow. So,
which is interesting because I think a lot of young people, and certainly myself, I started raving as a teenager too, and that was sort of the only place I felt like I fit in, mainly because it was, a collection of weirdos. But
yes. So yes, I did feel I did hang out with weirdos. No, it was more. I did connect with people through music, but there was still something missing, and I can't even put my finger on it. It was a feeling. So I also played basketball. So I had some scholarships to the States, but also there, I also had a feeling when I went to the States, I felt like a number. I felt like it was a business. And from Canada, we're super naive, it's not a business so much.
Right.
So when I realized that, I was like, this is not what I want to do. So I looked at Montreal, which I went to visit for a rave, and I felt very free there. It felt European. I felt more connected to it. So I went to McGill University. I studied computer science and management, and I graduated. And then in that process, I became a DJ.
Right. And so I'm curious, in that time period, what did you think you were going to do? Like, was there anything in the back of your mind that music could be a career at that point? Or were you just focused on the school and music was kind of like a hobby at that point?
I mean, raving was a really serious hobby for me.
Oh, me too.
In university.
Yeah.
Even, I didn't really know. I think my parents planted that seed with the reel-to-reel when I was like 4 years old, and I was playing with my mom's needles and turning my dad's turntable when they weren't home because everything was off, It was the only way to make the record work. So the seeds were planted there, and I somehow also manifested that if I work hard, that I will achieve anything. And so I worked hard at music.
Is that something your parents taught you in any capacity as well?
I think
what did they do?
They're, again, middle class, where my dad, had different businesses to support the family. I think I instilled that from my dad. My dad was always like working hard And so that I got that passed down to me. But where now I would like to manifest that I would like to work hard, but in a different capacity, you know, not so I'm like, my hands are tired.
Right.
You know, I like to enjoy life too.
Of course.
We're not working all the time, but also working on purpose-driven and impact, social impact.
Yeah, it's something I find really interesting about anyone, I mean, kind of in the entertainment industry in general, but specifically DJs and musicians. You know, I think a lot of us came to this because we didn't want set hours. You know, we wanted to be independent. We didn't want to have a boss necessarily. But then, ironically, we all end up working a lot harder than we would have otherwise in like a set office framework.
It is, but it's if it's your passion, does it feel like work?
Well, that's the thing, right? And no, it doesn't, which is why I think we can throw ourselves into it so much. But then we get into this other interesting question of when your work becomes your play and your play becomes your work. Sort of how do you keep those lines from just dissolving? And I guess now we're back to how do you take care of yourself? I mean, for you, outside of the meditation and the, sort of the morning practices and rituals, is there anything else you found to, help center yourself to make sure that you're not being lost to the work or the ride? I know that's a really broad question.
Yeah, I know it's a really, really broad question. I mean, there's infinite ways to take care of yourself, infinite balancing all the time in life. I posture is a big thing. I do a lot of Pilates.
Oh, I love that.
I work a lot on my spine as well because of the planes and the computer and the hunch of the DJ. I definitely work a lot of Pilates. I've done a lot of different plant medicines. You know, there's so many different ways you can go. You do retreats. I would love to go on a Qigong retreat. I would love to do a Vipassana. I have not yet. It's about finding that kind of 11 days to go. If all of us DJs and all of us humanity could do a Vipassana, I think that we would be in a different state.
I don't know what that is. I have to be honest.
Sure. So this is great. You can share this with everyone you'll interview from now on. So a Vipassana is, I forget if it's 9 or 10 days, but it's a silent meditation and, you go to a place, you sign up and you go to a place where it's quite tranquil and you're just meditating all day long in silence. You don't even make eye contact with people. You really take that time to go inward and, that stillness in your mind, that's where the healing comes from. It's like our mind is constantly in traffic. Like that's the way to look at it. If you're thinking, you're in traffic. And when you're in traffic in the real world with your car, being in traffic is really stressful. It sucks. It's stressful. So you got to think about the same thing with your mind. You got to give it a break. Just like you got to think about the same way with your digestion. You need to give it a break.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's actually, now that you defined it for me, a previous guest on this show, I don't know if you know him, LS Dream, he was telling me he did a retreat similar to that and said it was pretty amazing. So,
there's only positivity that can come from it.
I love that. I don't know. I gotta look into that.
For sure.
If anyone out there listening has done that, write in and let me know how it went.
For sure. It's really nice to hear people's experiences because you have many revelations. Obviously, you're thinking in your meditation, we're not perfect, but when you have that thought, you learn how to just let it float by like a cloud.
Yeah, I love that. And so to bring it back to you, you're in Montreal, you're going to these raves, you're going to school. Was any kind of electronic music speaking to you then? Have you always, did you always like zoom into techno? You mentioned breaks earlier.
Yeah, no, I never really liked breaks.
Okay.
It was, I don't know, something very masculine about it. And it wasn't, I love drum and bass for a little bit, but that didn't last long.
Yeah, drum and bass is another macho energy. I love drum and bass a lot, but it has that issue for sure.
No, it was good for that moment in time with the raves and there was a lot of ecstasy around then too, I think.
Yeah.
In that time.
It's something I think about even in 2019 because I approach it, I'm more in the American, whatever you want to call it, EDM world. And it's something I love to do. I'm very connected to the music. It's very meaningful to me, but it's very macho. It's very male driven and white, and just like, it's an issue I struggle with because I don't want to feel like I'm contributing to making that worse. But then at the same time, I love the music that culture has sort of claimed, you know?
So what are you going to do?
I don't know. What should I do? It's just therapy for me now.
Yeah, no, just keep being yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Just do whatever you're doing with good intentions. Your contributions to music are very well noted, and just keep doing that. Keep being true to yourself.
Well, how about for you in the techno scene, which is, I'm a huge fan of house and techno, but I know less about the current,
Sure.
way
I'm more in the
works.
house scene. I'm not really in techno right now. I'm more just like, honestly, in spreading positive vibes, and also through my music. So it's quite positive.
Well,
house music.
That's the vibe I get, especially from current house music. It seems like a very open, friendly scene. Do you get that more or less traveling abroad? Like, do you feel like there's a difference in the feeling of the scene here in North America versus, Europe or Asia?
Of course, 100%. It's more bassy here, especially the West Coast is much different than the East Coast. West Coast, it's more bassy music.
Do you change what you do depending on where you are?
It's also a feeling. I definitely adapt my set, of course. Of course, because I know for me, it's like it's a compromise between reading the crowd and also education, and also what I would like to play, also new songs new tracks I have finished. But I am an adapter. I'm like a chameleon.
That's like the definition of a DJ, I think, is the best ones are those chameleons.
Yeah, for sure. And I love to explore, like if I'm going to South America, I love to explore kind of like what they can connect to, that extra mile, that I can have that connection with them. I'll make some edits of some old tracks or something.
Yeah. And when did you start sort of being more globally aware in terms of music? So if you're in Montreal and you're sort of DJing for fun at the time, at a certain point you met your partner in Blondish, or now a former partner, right? How did that come about?
Which part? The
meeting, is it Anastasia?
Anastasia, yeah. We met in Montreal. And we saw a whole kind of a gap in the scene. We also connected through music. And we were like, okay, well, let's do a party.
And had you been DJing already?
I was DJing and she was just starting out. And we decided, like, let's make a party on Wednesday night in the middle of the week. Just kind of like screw up everyone's weekend. We did. We got all the right people involved, and we just had a crazy party called Blondish for 2 years in Montreal, and that's how it all kind of started.
What was the house scene like there at the time?
Crazy.
What hole did you see that needed to be filled that wasn't what you wanted there?
That there wasn't just like an incredible party where that you can go every week and you'll just have a crazy time. We would like have people harness from the ceiling and just,
nice.
We would have some fun in between all the music. And it was kind of like this red cabaret downstairs vibe. So it had this extra layer of authenticity or like nostalgia.
Yeah.
So when you were in there, you got a bit crazy.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Was it during those couple years when you were throwing that party, did you see it catching on? Did you start thinking, hey, maybe this could be, something more than just a local party? I
mean, after 2 weeks of Anastasia and I playing together, everyone started calling us Blondish. So it happened itself. Yeah, so we rolled with it.
Well, that's great. I mean, so how did it evolve? How did you break out of Montreal? Did you start making music together right away?
No, we didn't. I mean, because in Montreal, we were in our comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, time flies by. So we moved to London because she was in a relationship and he was from London, or he lived in London, sorry. So we moved there. And when we moved there, it was like, I gotta wait in line to get in a queue. Sorry,
Right,
I gotta queue up to be in a club again. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I work really hard Montreal scene. I can get in anywhere I want. So we quickly, instead of going out, we just locked ourselves in the studio and we made some music there. And then we eventually signed to Get Physical and Compact, and that's how it all started.
Oh, that's so interesting. And what were you producing on in the early days?
A lot of Logic. In Logic, but it was always more not as intuitive as Ableton for me.
I always felt that way too.
But it is powerful, and I do like how it sounds. But the intuitivity of Ableton kind of wins.
Yeah, no, it was very seductive for me. The second I got onto Ableton, I was like, oh, finally, this feels just comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still love it. And you still use it?
It's like a Rubik's Cube of DAWs.
Yeah, no, pretty much. And it seems like, people caught on to your sound and your style pretty quickly. You mentioned, Get Physical and Compact, sign those early releases. Is that around the time you started to tour more heavily as well?
For sure, because we lived in Europe, we were based there, so the touring was easy there. There's so many cities to play in. And
had you done much traveling just in general before that?
I have, yeah. I mean, my career started in Montreal before I met Anastasia. I was playing at Guy Liberté's house during Grand Prix. He's from Cirque du Soleil. He created that project. I was playing actually, I'll go into the story later, but it was a Grand Prix weekend. Everyone was tired. All the DJs were tired, but the people still wanted to party. So they were like, can you DJ? And I didn't have my records. I played with the resident DJ's records, but I knew all the color codes and the pictures and everything. So I knew his records, and I did a good job. So one of his friends was opening a club in Italy, and he was like, come be my resident. So that's how it all started.
Wow.
And that was in Italy. So I started traveling back and forth every month, and I lived there for 6 months. So I was doing the traveling bit.
Oh, amazing! And did you enjoy that, the back and forth, like right off the bat? Because you strike me as somebody who's just loves going to different places, seeing different cultures, or even if you don't love it, you're doing it a lot.
Yeah, no, of course, because the cultures are what bring inspiration. I mean, I can be inspired by a door opening in Bulgaria. Just by the creek.
That's a song.
And it is, so you just get constantly inspired when you're traveling, really.
Well, that's an interesting question is, does the physical location you're in affect the music that you write there? Like, do you go to a specific place when you want to write music? Well,
I've written, in India, definitely. Yes. When we were in Tulum, you can hear from our album in 2015, we were like recording sounds in the jungle, in the cenotes, on the beach. So we're you're big time inspired by your surroundings. And when you're in India, I don't want to hear a kick. Hearing a kick is weird in India.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean?
I just want to hear instrumentation, live instrumentation. It's more, has more subtle.
That's interesting. The
space between.
I never really thought about it that way.
Well, everyone's different, but that's how I feel.
Of course, no, and that's your aesthetic. I think is what draws people to the project, right? What brought you to Tulum to do the album? Like, why did you want to go there to write it?
Well, been living there for the past 10 years, in
Tulum.
Yeah, for 3-4 months a year.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore, but up until last year, yes. So that felt natural.
Well, sure.
I have such a love for that place,
And you mentioned Tulum, the scene there was sort of a reaction against more commercial or mainstream spots, Playa del Carmen.
It was becoming something that didn't feel right again to me. It wasn't, there's security, money, greed. It wasn't free. I like to be free, just like all humans should be free. There's too many rules and also we had a bit of a kerfuffle with the promoters. So we decided to be true to ourselves and explore. And that for us, that was the best decision we ever made. Because now Tulum, in terms of the music scene, the Tulum music scene also spread to Ibiza, it spread to Mykonos, it spread all over Europe, and also some parts of the US. So it was a great place incubator.
What other artists were around you in those times in Tulum? Like, because I don't know so much about the history of that scene.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to think. It was more like Loom is one of them. Bedouin is another. I think Lee Burridge was also there. And Guy was also there quite early, but I think he was also with BPM.
And it's interesting you talk about, the commercialization or the money or the greed and that sort of tainting the purity of the scene or the culture, right? That's something I think about a lot. Like maybe a good way to bring it back to what we're talking about is, say, you play Coachella this year, right? And the Coachella lineup in general, I was pretty impressed with in terms of electronic music this year. A lot of great names, a lot of people making really cool music. But, I'm always curious when it gets to a stage like Coachella, which is arguably, the most commercialized venue you could possibly play. How do you... Or do you even think about, the underground versus mainstream thing, how you present what you do in a format that works at a Coachella, but then still maintains the integrity of...
No, it's totally fine there. I mean, the people that are coming to see you in the Yuma tent are coming because they love electronic music. And I had such a good time listening to all the other acts, actually, on all the other stages. Like, I was blown away by the talent. Whether it's commercialized or not, there's talent there.
Sure.
True talent. I want to make a note is now Tulum has become super commercialized. Greed has set in.
Of course. It happens to everyone eventually.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope as humanity we can really figure out how, if we're going to a sensitive ecosystem, how we can satisfy the cyclical loop of nature so that we are respecting the place and we're not ruining it,
Well, sure. And now we're back to nature. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Amazing that we're always coming back to nature. I love how you connect the dots.
It's a passion of mine too. It's funny because it can seem incongruous that, a DJ playing, club music and then somehow is married to these ideas of activism. And I know for you have the Bye Bye Plastics initiative, and I know you do cleanups on sites, sometimes even sites that you've played at, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, single-use plastics is a huge buzzword right now. We're kind of in a crisis of humanity right now. If you've not noticed, we are. And we have a ticking time bomb. Like, we should have one of these timers all around the world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's invisibly in the background. Like, I think about it on a daily basis.
So you're conscious of it. Yeah. So I would like to do my part and I know that I can help because we're one phone call away from everyone in the music industry. And as artists, we have a pretty big voice. I want to give artists and DJs the tools how to use those voices because I don't know, I've been working on it and I see how we can come up with solutions. And the Bye Bye Plastic initiative is all about finding solutions for single-use plastics in the music industry. And it's amazing because it's propagating to all sorts of different industries. We want to be an example for different industries. And, I'm balls deep in this right now.
I love that. Can you give me an example of something you're doing through the initiative? Something that maybe people could do if they go to an event, practices to be more eco-conscious?
Okay, so I can tell you on the other side, before we go to the fan base, what we're doing internally.
Or for the artists, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Internally, there is a communal effort of all of us to upgrade our hospitality riders to be single-use plastic free.
Yeah, that's so important.
Which is great on paper. It's hard to implement. So we kind of need babysitters. I have a team of people on Bye Bye Plastic, but that are kind of helping the process.
Yeah.
So we have the hospitality riders. That's step one. Okay. And the next step, there's like over 1,000 DJs signed on, and I have a meeting at 4. So we'll have like now 5,000 DJs or something. Like we're moving. That's step one. Step two will be something like carbon offsetting. How can we offset all these flights that we're taking? I didn't know much about it until a couple months ago, but there's a lot of amazing people working on it, like DJs for Climate Action.
Yes,
and
my friend Sammy.
Okay, so you know Sammy?
Yeah,
okay,
Sammy's,
perfect.
We went to school together. I've known him for so long.
Okay, perfect. So Sammy, they're doing it. We were kind of trying to tell them how we implemented the Echo Rider so they can also use the same system, because it's so simple. We make it simple so everyone actually adopts it.
Right.
It's the only way we can actually move forward together.
Right.
And I always say, let's evolve together. So that's the plan.
Sure.
We also, Bye Bye Plastic has a hotline. So venues also, they see the rider, they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can go plastic free my whole venue. So we have a hotline you can call so we can help you with solutions, because every solution is unique. It's not like we can just make a piece of paper and put 3 rules on it.
Right.
It's dense. Plastic is everywhere, and we have, just in the UK, there's 300 different types of recycling programs in each borough. So that's one thing. And on the others community side, it's basically the conversations need to start. So if you're at a club and you see straws or plastic, you need to contact us, or you need to tell them like, hey, like, I don't want to use plastic anymore. So those conversations need to be started, and then contact us. Contact Bye Bye Plastic team so we can like follow up.
Where can they find that team?
It's on WhatsApp. We have Instagram, and the website will be done in 1 week.
By the time this comes out, I'll link to it in the description.
Okay, yeah. Amazing. And if anyone, obviously, we're always looking for volunteers because there's so much work to do. Like people are like in Lebanon, like, hey, please help us. I'm like, we want to, but we can't. Like we're focused on the UK, the US, and Spain, and it's already so much work.
Well, of course, and for a small team too, and it's an uphill thing to start, right? Because you have to.
It's self-funded now, so I need to figure out that mechanism.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So once we figure out that mechanism, we can get more people involved so that we can amplify the project quicker.
And how have you found, what's the best way you've found to sort of present these ideas to, say your average just artist or your average club goer in a way that seems digestible? Because for me, one thing I always struggle with is how do you sort of straddle the line between we're here to party and let loose and, this is an escape or whatever you want to call it, versus also there are these serious issues we need to think about, and you kind of want them to happen simultaneously, Well, it's a converse that's at the beach cleans. I mean, the beach cleans are, we're not going to save the world by picking up some plastic on the beach, but we do that because it gives a space to connect outside of the party. Because in the party we're dancing, we have like you said, we're escaping. Right.
And then the beach clean is an invitation to connect on a different level and also on different topics.
I like that because that's almost like a meet and greet, basically, except for a purpose.
Exactly, and it's used as a place where we can start plant seeds for collaborations. Oh, I love collaborating, and it also is a space where many other people come together and start their own process, their own collaborations. So it's a fruitful initiative there.
And how long have you been doing this with the plastics initiative and the beach cleanups? When did that start for you?
Intensely, just like last year. It's been a long time in the making. Since I went solo, I have more space,
right, to
really work on the projects that I was very passionate about. Whereas before it was I couldn't go full force.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, any partnership, there's, you sort of meet in the middle of both of your spheres of interests, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a communal effort. So now I can just go full force with all of this stuff.
How did that happen that you ended up as a solo project? Because that after so many years as a duo, that it must be, I don't know, it must be strange. It might be refreshing. How did it happen?
Well, it's a relationship. You know what I mean? And humans are two bundles of energy. So energy sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So after 10 years of being together, we just started to have like different lives.
Sure.
Completely different lives. And a lot of things changed. And I started to ask questions. Am I happy? Am I free? And then we would have that conversation. Are we happy? Are we free? And in some instances, when we went through that journey and that process, we decided might be better to take those two bundles of energy and it would be less energy.
Right.
To do it separately. So that's how it happened.
Well, that's good. I mean, then it
was a beautiful process. It wasn't easy.
Right.
It wasn't easy at all. And, but I do love her and I do respect the whole process. And it was hard as hell, but I'm really happy.
Good.
I hope she is as well.
Good. Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like if you were going to part ways, that sounds like probably the best way it could have happened, right? That you're in communication. It's a mutually understood thing. Yeah. And I'm sure she feels the same way, right?
Yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
How have you found it, just on a day-to-day level of you were doing everything together, you were together all the time, now you're on your own. Do you like alone time? Do you find yourself, needing people around more so? How about, the touring, any of it? Like, what's it like as a solo act now?
It's great. Of course, when you have someone beside you for 10 years in the DJ booth and they're not there anymore, like in January, this kind of process was happening, you feel like there's an emptiness there.
Yeah.
So I had a fear. But then I started playing by myself. Like I played more just to get over that fear, like really working on it. I meditated also on it because like fear is a strong thing. So I realized actually, I turned that fear into something positive. I realized that when I have more room in the DJ booth now to jump around and dance around and play with more loops and, get really down in the journey of the set. So, from a negative thing, you can always turn that fear into a positive thing. And that's a process I went through with that.
Well, that's a great attitude to have. I feel like in general, you're sort of always looking on the bright side or trying to find the silver lining of these situations.
Well, you realize that through all the inner work you do, that there's always two ways to look at things, many ways to look at things. So why can't I just turn that way of looking into a positive thing?
I mean, 100%. I completely agree, but I just think that I'm impressed because that's not an attitude you see with, every artist I talk to on this show. Were you always that way, even as a younger person?
I don't think I knew back then. This is knowledge that I've gained in the last 8 years or so.
Well, yeah, you have a good body of work under your belt to show for it. And you mentioned earlier that you like collaborating as well, which is why I was interested about talking about going from a duo to a solo act. And recently, I wanted to bring up you collaborated with a friend of the show, old friend of mine, Diplo. How did you meet him and what was that process like? Because, he's sort of in a different world, right?
Yeah, he's in a completely different world, but he became obsessed with house music. And we were kind of friends at the right time. So like the way it happened was, how did it happen? I heard through the grapevine that he wanted to book us at his birthday party.
Oh, okay.
In Jamaica. And we're like, okay, well, Diplo wants to book us at his birthday party.
Jamaica?
At first I was like, okay. I never paid attention to him. I never knew what he was up to.
Right.
We're a completely different world, like you said. And then I was in Mykonos and I saw him like on all the billboards and everything. So I messaged a friend. I said, hey, well, let's meet. Let's see can you put me in touch with Diplo? So he did. And he was like, Diplo was like, Wes was like, come to dinner. And I was like, okay. I was like, really? I was like, I've never been on a blind date dinner.
right, yeah.
So I went there with my girlfriend. I felt really weird going there. I almost didn't go. So anyway, we showed up. We became friends right away. Like we hit it off and we just kept in touch. And he came to Tulum also. The next night he came to an Abracadabra at Scorpio's. Abracadabra is one of our parties.
Right.
And I think we can ask him his own opinion, but my story is he really was like, what's going on here? Like, I really like, because all eyes were not on the DJ. It was like a distributed vibe, like beautiful women, really nice vibe, just lots of different things going on. And I think he became like excited about that. He's like, wow, I want this.
Yeah.
And
he told me more or less the same thing the last time I talked to him. Not about you specifically, but about going to Tulum and seeing that sea. And,
sure. So then we invited him to Tulum. We're like, come down here. And he came for Abracadabra again. And he was just like a little kid in a candy store. He was like researching, going to all the parties, seeing what's going on, like really figuring it out, doing his homework. And that's where it kind of started.
And what was the collaboration process like?
It was...
to make the track for his EP.
It was like, hey, do you want to work on a song together? Okay, cool. Let me send you something. I'll send you something. Here's a couple tracks. Okay, I like this one. Okay, I'm going to work on it. I worked on it. Okay, here's the final song. What do you think? I love it. Cool.
Great story. It's like out of a classic novel. I love it. Okay, well, I
really love the vocal that Callow did. It was just
I love it too. I was listening to it earlier today. And we'll wrap it up because I know you're time limited.
We got a meeting with Adidas. We want to save the world.
It's for your initiatives? You're talking to Adidas about that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm working on a documentary. We're pitching to Netflix, Amazon, all the stream
amazing.
with a producer. He's actually in town right now. And we've been meeting and we just finished the pitch deck. So now he's going to pitch everyone because it's called the Zero Plastic Tour. And so I'll be talking about that with Adidas. And we're also working on many things like collaborations and stuff for the kind of amplify the plastic mission.
Amazing. Well, I love all of that. I love that work. Two quick things. What is Abracadabra? Very quickly for the people who might not know. Yeah,
Abracadabra is an event we do. And it's an event as an answer to kind of an evolution of the party. A few years ago, I kind of got sick of playing at 5 a.m. in this kind of square box. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Don't get me wrong, but I really wanted to party earlier. I love the sunset. Let's enjoy it. And I wanted to connect with people on a different level because music is in all of us.
Yeah.
There was something about that getting wasted in a club model that, again, didn't feel 100% right.
Sure.
And we wanted to explore how we can use music to connect in a different way with our crowd.
And it's a label for you as well, right?
Yes. It's also a label.
Awesome.
There's so much going on.
Very quickly, a time in your life, and this is just off the top of your head, just a moment, any time in your life when music really deeply affected you. And that's just the first thing that pops into your head.
The gong. The gong for me is I have a really deep connection with this gong thing. Just the feeling of that when it kind of resonates here. Like I'm touching my chest. There's something there that's just like, wow. It's like everything and nothing at the same time.
I couldn't have wrapped it up better than that. Hey,
it's really a portal to your insides. That's how to connect to your inside. That's how I feel about that gong.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Willy.
All right, bye-bye. Bye. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Blondish. That was a lot of fun meeting up with you. I'm glad we carved out that little bit of time to connect. I hope we can talk again sometime. I'd love to do a part 2. And for everybody out there listening, don't forget, go check out the Bye Bye Plastic initiative from Blondish. Check out the new song, Give Them with Diplo. Check her out on tour. All of that is in the link in the description of this episode. My name is Willy Joy. You can always hit me up too, backtobackpod@gmail.com or at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. I'm also linking to the Back to Bangers Spotify playlist that I make every single week for this show in the description of this episode. If you have Spotify, go check that out as well. You can hear new music from Blondish, from myself, a lot of the other guests, and I'm just always trying to keep that updated with fresh sounds for you guys. But most importantly, if you're still listening, if you can hear my voice right now, I appreciate you. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're accomplishing a lot. I hope you're feeling great about yourself, about what's going on in your life. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Go out, have some fun, relax. We're in the middle of summer. You got to go enjoy it. And that's it, man. What else could I say? I'll talk to you next week. I hope you have a good one. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.